This Sportz Blitz podcast is brought to you by LMG. Grow your business through logo design, paper products, and video production. Visit leemarketing.net to learn more.
Welcome back to Sportz Blitz Live, presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill in S&S. Discount Tire, Brett Pritchard and Scott Hardy here with you till 9 o'clock. And at this time, I want to go to the phone lines and welcome in a special guest, Dr. Glenn Fleisig from American Sports Medicine Institute. Dr. Fleisig, you with us?
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you. Dr.
Fleisig, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. We appreciate you taking out some time to talk to us about this subject of Tommy John surgery and the increasing awareness of what not to do and what kids need to be doing at certain ages. I know this has been a hot topic for quite some time here in the United States.
Well, that's true. In fact, it's now a hot topic nationally because all these major leaguers from the Atlanta Braves to the New York Yankees are going down. But really, we started seeing it here in Alabama. Dr. Andrews and myself, back in the 1990s, Dr. Andrews, of course, is the surgeon and I'm the researcher, and we were noticing an alarming trend of the number of kids, high school age, who were having these Tommy John injuries in the 1990s. And so we did a whole bunch of studies, scientific studies throughout the state of Alabama in the 1990s, and this work has really been the foundation for what recommendations we're giving to Major League Baseball now.
Well, Dr. Fleisig, let's start at a young age. And at what age does it become safe for kids to start throwing something other than a fastball? I mean, I coach youth league sports. I currently coach 9 and 10-year-old kids, and we do not promote anything other than a fastball or maybe some type of a changeup. Nothing that where you're throwing a curve ball or a slider or any kind of breaking ball of any sort. So I know that's a hot question out there for coaches and parents.
Sure.
When do you need to start working with kids, and when's it not a safe? When is that threshold?
Well, let me tell you an interesting story. That's not even the right question to ask. We were actually doing research to answer two questions. How much pitching is too much, and what age should you start throwing a curveball? We did these studies in the biomechanics lab and also in the field and studied these things. And study after study, we kept showing that the kids who were pitching a lot were the ones getting hurt, and the ones who were whether they were throwing curveballs or not. The curveball ended up being a very secondary factor, Scott and Brett. So it turns out the right question, the primary question is how much should my kid pitch? To answer your question about the curveball, the science shows that the fastball is the best pitch to learn first, and then the changeup, and essentially the curveball, you're ready when you're ready. In other words, after you have the fastball and after you have a good changeup, and when you want a third pitch, typically about 13 years old or so. But really, the question is, when someone comes in and says, my kid wants to throw a curveball, we're like, slow down a little. How much does your kid play? And then they tell us story after story about being in travel baseball. And, here in Alabama, we have nice weather. So the biggest concern is not the curveball. That's a secondary concern. The biggest concern is how many games is your kid pitching in?
Well, Dr. Fleisig, this is Scott Hardy, and I wanted to ask you, there's been upwards of 30 guys this year who, on the major league level, who have had to have Tommy John surgery, or that's the diagnosis that they will have. What do you think is called, especially now, there's such more now, and especially your primetime pitchers compared to where they were previously? Because the workload, I don't think, is too much different than what it was, but I know that plays a lot into it. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, your timing is perfect. In fact, Dr. Andrews and myself were just up in New York City last week. We had a Major League Baseball held a medical advisory committee meeting, and the two of us were there with them and talking about this very issue. And so we had the best minds in medicine at Major League Baseball in New York City. What we came out with is that a couple of things are happening. The major leaguers we're seeing now, who are in their young 20s, were the 12-year-olds 10 years ago, obviously. So they were the first, the current major leaguers are the first generation to play this year-round baseball. In addition, today's major leaguers, as a group, are throwing harder than major leaguers in previous years. They have better mechanics and better strength and conditioning, and they just got everything going, which is good, but the combination of throwing so hard and powerful with pitching so much of the kid is a deadly combination.
And yes, sir. You look at Throwers 10. I know that's one of the main programs, throwing programs wise, that you would use for the surgery. And I know that's shoulder wise, but it seems the transition has been, because there's been so much work done with the shoulder, that there's a lot more elbow injuries happening now as well. So I know that a lot of UCL tears and that type of thing. So
right.
We'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of things happening there. Basically, both the shoulder and elbow, we can make people's muscles stronger and more powerful and their mechanics better. But the poor little ligaments and tendons in the elbow and shoulder, we really can't strengthen them much. So both in the elbow and shoulder, they're the weak link. As it turns out, they both have a tendency to tear. But the elbow, Dr. Andrews and the other doctors, they're really good at fixing these things now. And so the elbow, it's not that the elbow breaks more. The elbow and shoulder both break as much or tear, but the doctors and the routine is very good for fixing the elbow, still a little less sure in the shoulder. So basically, I think the doctors and the kids might be a little more willing to lean towards surgery when they have the problem.
We've got Dr. Glenn Fleisig on from American Sports Medicine Institute on the Dane Sharp Attorney at Law Hotline. And Dr. Fleisig, I want to switch back. Scott mainly went into the Major League talk. I want to go back and let's talk about youth sports again and the number of pitches, because obviously that's what you guys have come to the conclusion that science has proven that it's amount of pitching, it's the wear and tear that the kids put on their arms or coaches put on their kids' arms or parents. So the travel ball, number one, kids playing year-round, is that one of the, obviously you just alluded to it, do you feel like this is the major contributing factor to all these injuries?
Brett, that is exactly it. Think about it. What happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago? There were kids who loved baseball. There were parents and coaches who loved for the kids to play baseball. But when I was growing up, we had Little League season or high school season, and then it was time to go play football or basketball. Nowadays, there's year-round baseball. So we have more injuries now, and the only thing that's changed is this year-round baseball. Statistically, you connect the dots, that's exactly what's happening. We now have limits in Little League Baseball and High School Federation, but the problem is there's a lot of these travel teams and independent teams. So it's really not for Little League or high school to completely control our kids. It's really for the parents, your listeners, to understand that in their best interest, more is not always better for their kid.
No, it's not.
Middle.
No, you're exactly right, Doc. And one of the things that I was going to stress out there is because there's a lot of parents that ask us that question. Again, with me coaching 9 and 10 year old baseball, I've got several players on my team that play travel ball. They'll play a weekend tournament, then they'll come back and we'll have 2 games during the week. And and a lot of times those are 2 of my better pitchers on the team that I have to throw. Well, they just threw this weekend too in a tournament. So what is the right amount of pitching? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you said pitchers who pitch more than 100 innings of competition per year are 3 times likely to need surgery. Is that correct?
You have done your homework. That is correct. First of all, for our listeners here, our website, asmi.org, it has the research information there. But you're exactly right. A study of the 500 in the state of Alabama followed them for 10 years. Found out the kids who pitch more than 100 innings any one calendar year 3 times as likely to have surgery by their 20th birthday.
Yes, and so
3 times as likely.
Yes, and so you're looking at it also, these younger kids pitching, but you said a lot of people want to opt for surgery, but I think people have a misconception about what actually Tommy John's is. That isn't always necessarily the option that is needed, but a lot of times the success rate that it has, you're going to throw faster, you're going to be able to be more durable. So I think people, if there is an injury, that's the first thing they go for. They want to have Tommy John's.
Can you still hear me now?
I'm sorry, Dr. Fleisig. It is pouring rain here on top of the studio, so that interference you're hearing is a downpour outside, so we apologize.
Okay, I'll just talk over that, but you're exactly right. It's a funny day we live in. Dr. Andrews and Kane and Dugas and the doctors are trying to talk the patients out of surgery, and the patients are trying to talk the doctors into surgery. Because the doctors know that God gave us the best elbows and shoulders, and all the doctors are trying to do is at best put it back to the original case. So really, surgery, first of all, not 100% get back, maybe 80% get back. What about the 20% who don't get back? And even the 80% who get back, at best they're going to be as good as they were before. So really, surgery is your last resort, and people fall too in love with that idea. The surgery is not magic. The best way is to avoid getting the injured.
You know, I think that's the case, Dr. Fleisig, with any surgery. You know, the last case scenario should be going under the knife at all possible costs. So, but again, we really appreciate you taking time out to be part of the program, to enlighten our audience out there on a lot of these key facts, because they hear, you know, a lot of different information, and sometimes it's hard to process what is true and what's not. And we really appreciate you taking time out to enlighten everybody.
It's been my pleasure, and good luck with that rain, and hopefully it'll be a nice day for playing baseball soon.
Thank you, Dr. Fleisig. We'll have you on soon, okay?
Yes. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. And again, apologies as our good Lord dropped some rain on us here in Alexander City. And but we really appreciate Dr. Fleisig. A lot of great information there. I think that's something that I hope parents heard and hope coaches heard, that, you know, sometimes more is not better. You know, it's in the scheme of things, yes. As we're young, we feel like we can do more. We not, but you're putting wear and tear on those joints, those tendons, those ligaments. That's eventually going to show up down the line.
Yeah, and so as we talk about on the major league level, 30 guys who've had it, and of those, the majority were, like as he said, younger 20s, and I didn't think about it that way, but it correlated with the exact time frame in which he mentioned where travel ball became so popular. But again, 100 innings over, what is that what it was, 100 innings in a year, 3 times more likely. And so, and that happens. I know a lot of people growing up, we probably pitched more than that than what we were supposed to. So again, very enlightening information.
1-800-782-0108, 256-234-6464. We'll take your calls when we get back. Stay tuned. More Sports Blitz Live presented by JR's and SNS Discount Tire right after this.